favorite things, uncovering Candid's buried treasures. For those of you returning to Network Days programming, a warm welcome back. And to those of you joining us for the first time, I'm so glad you're here for this session. My name is Serena Dayal, and I'm a research specialist at Candid, based in New York. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Asia Hadley, Director of Partnerships based in Atlanta, Georgia, Anna Koob, Senior Lead Researcher based in Madison, Wisconsin, and Kathleen Clerkin, Senior Director of Insights based in Charlottesville, Virginia. Candid has a ton of resources, some more well-known than others. And in this session, we'll hear from Kat, Anna, and Asia about some of their favorite but lesser-known tools. They'll walk us through how to use them and why we might want to. First, Asia will preview our Tableau demographics database, which provides a snapshot into who is leading US nonprofits and foundations. Anna will then talk about the US social sector dashboard, which provides an overview and definitional context about the organizations, money, and people behind the social sector. And finally, Kat will share about the data behind Candid's nonprofit compensation report and what it tells us about gender pay gap. After each of our presenters have shared, we'll have some time for questions from you all so we can better understand how to use these resources in everyday practice. To that note, please feel free to type questions into the chat on Pathable throughout the session, and we'll make sure they get answered either via the chat or at the end of the session. Before we get started, we wanted to get a sense for how many people have heard of some of Candid's tools, including a few we'll share today. In the Pathable site for this session, you'll see a tab labeled polls. Please answer the first poll there. The question is, have you used any of these Candid tools and resources? And select all that apply. We'll pause for a moment so you can answer that question. It looks like the poll results are coming in slowly. And Foundation Directory, Candid Learning, and the blog are some of our more popular resources. And then the dashboard, compensation report, and GuideStar Pro, lesser used. That's exciting to know because actually some of those lesser known ones are related to or are actually the resources we'll be talking about today. With that, I'll turn it over to Asia to kick us off.
Thank you so much, Serena. I am so excited to share today about demographics via Candid's snapshot on Tableau Public. And I am going to share my screen. Give me one moment. All right. As Serena mentioned, I am Asia Hadley, Director of Partnerships based in our Atlanta office. And today I'm talking about something that has not been released yet. So you all are getting a great sneak peek of this new database, Demographics via Candid's snapshot on Tableau, which is a partnership between Candid and Tableau. And Snapshot is a publicly available dashboard. Well, it's not quite public yet because we're tweaking it. So it's made through a partnership between Candid and Tableau, and it's powered by Candid's data. And Snapshot allows you to access and search for demographic information about US nonprofits, foundations, and even your membership base. So this is something that's very exciting that we haven't had before available to the public. And what you're looking at is our homepage. The dashboard displays the number of organizations that have shared their demographic data with Candid, both overall in the first tab that you're looking at. And it's broken down by leader level and response through the various tabs that you see up top. So you can see that it breaks down by race and ethnicity, gender, cisgender, cis and transgender status, sexual orientation, disability status, seals of transparency, and glossary. But also this data can be filtered by state, region, subject, population, and range of expenses. Users can also search organizations by entering employer identification numbers. So we do this through an aggregate. So you don't do it individually. You have to have a minimum of at least 10 right now so that no one organization can be specifically identified. So this is all aggregate data. I'm not going to go through each tab, but I'm going to focus on just a few so that you can get an overall understanding of what this database is all about. So what you're looking at is the breakdown of data that's available via race and ethnicity. We ask one question about race and ethnicity and offer 8 options for responses. Note that in the dashboard, those who wrote in a response are listed under additional ethnicities. And also with our data, you can decline to state. So we have that as an option as well. The next tab that I'm going to focus on is gender. So again, we ask 2 questions about gender identity. The first question allows individuals to share both the extent to which they identify with the binary gender, the terms non-binary, genderqueer, and gender non-conforming signal that an individual does not identify with traditional binary gender. So we break that down for you as well. The next tab that I want to highlight gives us a wonderful overview of the seals of transparency that you will input into the database, whether it be your members or a geographic area. You can break down and see how many of your members or the population that you're looking at has a platinum seal level, gold, silver, bronze, which has expired. I love this particular snapshot because it also encompasses organizations that contributed demographic data. So it gives a side-by-side, overview. So you can look at that in detail. And then I want to highlight that there is a glossary. So the last tab, we're still tweaking it and adding information, but it breaks down what we mean by demographic data and race and ethnicity and gender so that you're all clear about the terminology that we're using. This is a database that is going to be available in January. That's when we're planning to launch. So you all are getting a sneak peek. But this partnership that we have with Tableau is a wonderful partnership that we will also have educational components to make sure that you understand how to use this database as well. So if you have members and organizations that you want to be able to understand in greater detail the demographic information, number one, start collecting those EINs, make that a part of your onboarding process so that you can input this information and get a snapshot for yourself. With that being said, thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it back over to Serena so that we can continue with the presentation. And I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Asia. Wow, that's very, very exciting to see. Especially a sneak peek, and it's a really valuable resource to see coming together. As we transition over to Anna to keep us going and to share another free tool that provides Candid data in aggregate.
Hello, I'm Anna Koob. I'm with Candid's Insights team, and today I'll be sharing a bit about our social sector dashboard. So the dashboard is freely available at a link that Serena will put in the chat if she hasn't already. So if you'd like to follow along, you certainly can. This tool is annually updated, first launched last year in October, and it primarily does 2 things. First, it provides data about the organizations, money, and people that make up the nonprofit sector in the US. And second, it also includes some definitional context about the social sector. what does that term mean? What are the organizations that make up the sector? So I'll speak more about these two dimensions, but first, why even create something like this? And we find that the tools that people tend to be most familiar with at Candid, so Foundation Directory, GuideStar, are primarily used to identify and learn more about specific organizations or specific grants. You know, who are the nonprofits working on health equity in Baltimore, or who's awarding grants for arts education in Wisconsin? The social sector dashboard, by contrast, is really looking at Candid data in the aggregate. Given that, you know, we're collecting millions of pieces of data annually about nonprofits and grant making, what story does the full scope of that data tell us about the scale of and nature of the sector as a whole? So to illustrate what the dashboard is and how it might be helpful without doing a full demo, don't have time for that. I've selected a series of questions that the dashboard can help us answer, and I'll run through them very quickly. So feel free to follow along on the site itself. So first, one very basic question that helps us kind of ground an understanding of the nonprofit space is to know how many registered nonprofits there are overall. The information in the dashboard appears across 4 tabs, which I've listed here. And the answer to this question appears under the Organizations tab, where you're able to discover that there are about 1.8 million overall nonprofits. And the vast majority of these are the kind of usual suspect 501c3 organization, what most people think of when they think of a nonprofit. Another question, where are nonprofits located? How many nonprofits are there in each state, and which states have the most nonprofits? This chart also appears under the Organizations tab, and here it's kind of represented per capita. So how many nonprofits kind of per 10,000 residents of each state. And so this kind of reveals that in terms of population per capita, the smallest states have the most. Some of the states with the least population actually have the most nonprofits per person, Wyoming, Dakotas. But I also want to use this chart to show you another feature of the dashboard. So by clicking on any of the charts, you can pull up the underlying data. So here you can also see the exact counts of nonprofits per state. And by clicking on the download CSV, you can actually bring up the raw data, which makes it easier to analyze, create your own visualizations if you want to. The third question gets at the variation in nonprofit size. How much revenue are most nonprofits bringing in? This chart is on the Money tab, and it shows the vast majority of registered nonprofits are very small, generating less than 50,000 in annual revenue. Going very quickly here. So one final question I pulled out is about the subjects and populations that grant dollars are supporting. So kind of now moving to Candid's grants data, these charts appear in the Money tab and show that education and health rank very highly in terms of dollars, in terms of grant dollars in the US. By population, we see that not specified or general population grants that aren't specifying a population, or either specifying that it's for kind of the general population, rank the highest, with economically disadvantaged people, the term we use from our taxonomy, in second place. So very briefly, I'll touch on the second goal of the dashboard, which is about definitions and context. What is the social sector? The Overview tab is where this information is located. And it shares our definition for what the social sector is, kind of broadly speaking, the collection of people and organizations that represent private action for public good. And then the different types of organizations that kind of play a part in the sector. We see the social sector as distinct from, but overlapping with, private enterprise, business, and government. And you can see from the bubbles that we're not limiting social sector organizations to nonprofits, though that's certainly kind of the area of the social sector space that Candid has the most data on. So we also consider unincorporated community groups, churches to be part of this sector. So I'll end here, but first I'll just say that this is a tool that's going to be evolving over the next couple of years. If you have any questions or feedback, including what you'd like to see in future versions, please email us at researchteam@candid.org. That goes directly into my email. And I hope to hear from you. So that brings my whirlwind presentation to a close. Thanks for joining. Back to you, Serena.
Thanks, Anna. And unlike the snapshot, this tool is actually something that we've had up for the last year or so. So really quickly, just want to ask, like, what are you excited about coming up for the U.S. Social Sector Dashboard as we transition to CAT?
Yeah, so it does get updated annually. We're about to update it a little bit and make some small tweaks that we think will kind of improve the user experience. I will say that the data in aggregate tends not to change too much year over year when you're looking at kind of very high level financials of the sector. But we will see some of those top funder lists, top nonprofit lists. There's some shuffling that happens year to year with those.
Cool. Thank you. Kat, take it away.
Sounds good. Thanks, Serena. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, excited to be here and share some more about some of our buried treasures. I wanted to share a little bit about Candid's nonprofit compensation report, and specifically what it tells us about the gender pay gap in our sector. So for those of you who haven't heard, we have an annual compensation report that we put out every year. We actually just released our most recent one a few weeks ago. It is the most comprehensive compensation report, that's a tongue twister, in the sector. It relies on data from over 80,000 nonprofit organizations that filed 990 and 990 EZs. It includes information about 14 of the top leadership positions, and offers really helpful breakdowns by location, including state and metro area, as well as an analysis based on budget size, cause area, and gender. It's a super helpful resource if you're doing any kind of benchmarking to try to figure out what compensation looks like in your specific subsector or location. And again, there's just a lot of information there. But today, I specifically wanted to talk about what the data tells us about the gender pay gap. So for the last couple of years, I've used the data from this report to write a running series, blog series that talks about the gender pay gap. And there's some more information that I'll share about that in a second. But first, I just wanted to kind of like backtrack a bit to put this in context and talk about the national gender pay gap. So outside of the sector, outside of the report, just in all of the US in general, according to the US Census Bureau, women make 83 cents for every dollar made by men in this country across sectors. And one way that this is talked about sometimes is by framing it in terms of the National Equal Pay Day. And so what this means is that based on that gender pay gap, folks calculate how far into the new year women have to work to make the same amount that men made last year. So this year, the National Equal Pay Day was March 15th, which means that women essentially had to work for free for all of January, February, and half of March in order to make the same amount of money that men took home last year. And so before I share what the report says about our sector, I wanted people to guess. And so I believe that there's a poll up in Hackable if you want to take a guess of what you think that the pay gap is specifically for CEOs, so kind of controlling for level in the organization in nonprofits. And Serena, I don't know if you can check the poll. I don't think I can do it while my slides are up.
Sure, yeah, people are starting to vote. It looks like the values range between 92 cents and 68 cents, and most guesses are ranging 76 cents. or 72 cents.
All right, thanks for that. You've got a pretty good gut. It turns out that according to the data, women CEOs of nonprofits make 72 cents for every dollar made by men CEOs, which is a bit depressing. So this year, that means that nonprofit CEO Equal Pay Day was in May. So again, women CEOs had to essentially work for free all the way through most of May in order to make the amount of money that their counterparts made last year. Again, slightly depressing. It gets more depressing. And so again, like today, since we're doing a lot of sneak peeks, I ran the calculations for next year, never before seen what these numbers look like. And based on the new data, it looks like next year, parity goes up a penny, which I mean is progress. So the gender pay gap next year is 73 cents, which means that nonprofit CEO Equal Pay Day will be May 16th next year. So keep a lookout for that. We will probably release more information next year. That does mean 96 days that women essentially went unpaid. So there's that. To add to the depression, I also did a little bit of a deep dive to see what that looks like by organization size. And so I broke down what is the pay gap for every kind of size from organizations under 250K all the way up to the $50 million organizations, and compared what the data looked like last year and this year to kind of see that 1 cent change and what happened. And if you look at that pink line is the most recent calculations that I did just this week. And it turns out that 1 cent increase is actually only happening among the really small organizations. So those really small organizations that have less than 250,000 in budget are the only ones where we're actually seeing parity. Everything else is going down slightly. So there's that. But to end on something hopefully a little less depressing, Susan, I know in Tableau you mentioned, how to get access to some of this data. The compensation report itself is a paid report. It is over 4,000 pages. Like I said, it's very comprehensive, which I think brings it to something like 10 cents a page if you go for the whole report. In the links in Tableau, we did include a free sample, so you can see a little bit about what the data looks like. And then again, every year I've been doing a pay gap blog, which shares some of the data publicly for free, kind of in the interest of parity. We're not gonna hide what the gender pay gap looks like. We're gonna make those numbers available. I will probably be doing another one next year. So if there's a specific analysis you're interested in or a specific breakdown you want to see on the blog, specific types of data, please add them to the chat. I would love to hear your ideas.
I was just saying, thank you, Kat. There's a lot of very cool data and very not cool findings from the data. We'll go into questions now. So also if anyone wanted to ask clarifying questions to Kat, please feel free to do so. I'll kick us off with some questions that came in through the chat. Feel free to continue typing questions into the chat or even coming off the mic if you'd like. I'll start with Asia. You mentioned the snapshot will go up in January. Folks are wondering, how will they be able to access it and how do they learn about when it does go live?
Great question. Thank you for asking. Yes, we are planning an entire campaign around it. So it's a part of a bigger initiative for demographics via Candid. So our marketing team is a part of that. So you'll be seeing postings and we'll communicate with our partners. So everyone here is pretty much a partner of Candid. So you will be hearing about it via a larger campaign.
Thank you. And Anna, where someone was wondering, how can they see data just on the nonprofits, their libraries, in their library service area? So I think related to the US social sector dashboard, what maybe is the smallest geographic scale one can look at the data by? Is it state?
We do have numbers by state, but it really is kind of national in scope right now. We don't kind of break down the data further at a state or region or kind of even by subject area. So that's the kind of feedback we'd love to hear, because we are kind of looking at how we might provide more detailed data in the future. And so particularly hearing about what questions people are looking to answer that they can't with the current dashboard will really help inform those future versions. Yeah.
And are there any resources for the dashboard or the Tableau dashboard for how to use, or are they pretty easy to use on their own? The question, I don't think that there are any training videos attached to them, but I think there might be some documentation. I don't know, Asia and Anna, if you can speak to that.
Yes, I can just say that the social sector dashboard, it's interactive in that you can click on a chart and kind of see the underlying data, but that is the extent of the interactivity. I think the snapshot demographic data is a little, it just has more going on. And I think there is training in the works, but I'll let Asia speak to that.
Right, training is in the works, and we do have detailed information in the portal itself to walk people through, but there will be accompanying training as well.
And Kat, I was just wondering, with your presentation, what are some of the key factors driving the gap? And I know we're not seeing that much change over time, so what do we think that is?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a few things. And so one is that among those larger organizations, we are not seeing any movement. So the larger organizations tend to be the ones that where people make more money and also where the gap is larger. And so while over time we're seeing actually a lot of improvement among small organizations, those under 250,000 organizations have gone, are almost at parity. But it's really the large organizations that continue to have a large salary, large pay gap, and largely run by men. So that's the kind of the third finding, is that the large organizations, while women are the majority when it comes to CEOs in the sector, they're still the minority among those large organizations.
Thanks, Kat. I know we have 2 minutes left, so I wanted to see if anyone wants to come off of mute, or Anna, Kat, Asia, if you had any questions or reactions to each other's presentations.
Well, I can jump in and answer Rachel's question that I'm just seeing. The 11 cents difference, so the national average is across all sectors, so not just the nonprofits, and the 72 cents gap is for the nonprofit sector, which is really depressing. So I feel like we think of the social sector and the nonprofit sector as being more inclusive, as being largely female run in a lot of ways, but the gap there is larger. And it's even more significant that that gap also controls for leadership level. So it's not even across all positions in the sector, but controlling for CEO, we're still seeing that gap. So it basically, that 11 cents difference suggests that there is a problem in our sector.
Well, I see we're at time, so I just want to say thank you very much, Kat, Anna, and Asia, for sharing these insights with us.